What's up, Sandboxers? So the second Game Jam has concluded, and that means we got a bunch of new games on the Sandbox platform. Of course, there was over 100 submissions, and while the experiences of each game may vary, it's really cool to see what games we can expect that are available right now on the platform. Also, just letting any of the new viewers who didn't know about this when it comes to Sandbox, but currently it's open to the public for anyone to download and try out, which if you want to figure out how to do that, you can go and check out this video right here. Fair warning though, this is just a developer preview, so things are bound to change until the game is officially released. But let's cover over 18 games that I think are worth checking out currently on Sandbox right now. First, let's start off with the second Game Jam winners. Starting off at number 5 is Franken Dungeon. Franken Dungeon is a old school multiplayer dungeon crawler. Basically, think of the first Elder Scrolls game that was made back in 1994 and not Skyrim for all my younger viewers out there. That's how old the series is. According to the description posted about this game was created in 10 days, with some new updates that are currently going out within this month. And with the gameplay provided, while I personally struggled a bit, it did take me a bit of time to get used to the controls. Overall, it's a fun dungeon crawler game that takes you back to a time when RPG games were simple and easy to follow. Next at number 4 is Marble Racer. Marble Racer is a fairly straightforward game, and while some people have seen this game in the same style as this is called Marbles on Stream, Marble Racer actually allows you to take control of the marble and race through a bunch of different obstacles and maps you can choose from. Plus, you can collect coins to then go to the marble machine to roll for marble skins. At number 3, we have Lawn Scare. Lawn Scare is a simple yet stylistic game that takes place in your backyard. Well, not literally your backyard, but a backyard. The point of the game is to do some normal chores around the yard, such as trimming the hedges, cutting grass, watering plants, and killing zombies. I didn't get this far, but Gary did, so I'm using his footage. Thanks, Gary. Between the style and gameplay presented makes for quite a cozy little game to play. Relax and crack a cold one by yourself, and the zombies that are waiting to kill you when they get the chance to. In second place is Death Card by Smallfish. This is a very cool voxel style dungeon crawler with procedurally generated dungeons. With over 8 starting classes to choose from and a ton of weapons and gear you can come across, this game is a ton of fun to play not only by yourself, but also with your friends too. The way the game plays and feels doesn't even make it seem like it's a game that you'd find on Sandbox, but rather a indie game in its own right. With boss fights and procedurally generated levels and a ton more, this game is fun to play and definitely better to play with friends. And at number 1, we have Micro Mayhem by Ape Tavern. This was such a fun game to play, and when I initially streamed playing through all these games from the Jam, this is one that I felt was definitely a game I would expect to get the top 5 placing. Micro Mayhem is a multiplayer round-based platformer that starts you off as you pick a map, and then from there you choose either 1, 2, or 3 objects to use before getting started in the game. Once that's done, then you and the other players position your objects in between parts of the map to provide a safe path to get to the other side and finish. If you do this more than enough times through the rounds, you'll get points for it, and if you have the most points, you win. After that first initial round, things will start to get crazy, as each passing round you'll have to do the same thing over and over again, making the path to reaching the finishing line more and more difficult for other players, but possibly easier for you as you outsmart your opponents to finish and get more points. I'll say this, and I mean this with no disrespect to any other games on the platform, as I do enjoy them all equally and with what I can get out of them as an experience that was tailored to me, the player. In my opinion, games like Micro Mayhem are needed on the Sandbox platform. While it's amazing to see that we can get full-on single-player experiences now on Sandbox, a lot of games nowadays unfortunately are tailored to being either co-op or multiplayer-focused games. And while not every game is only made to be multiplayer, it makes sense to have more of this style of game on the platform for the overall longevity and having players return to Sandbox. People have played Gary's mod not only for the Sandbox game mode, which you can also play with your friends too, but also games like TTT, Prop Hunt, Murder, and Dark RP. And this is no secret, as this has been one of the biggest pieces of its backbone that made Gmod what it is. But with Micro Mayhem, in my opinion, is a game that feels like something you'd expect to see many people to play on Sandbox, and a game that many people would recognize as a game akin to those classics I mentioned before. While it's awesome to see all 5 of these games earn a place in the second second Sandbox Game Jam and also become a part of the platform, let's now go and instead of counting down to 1, we continue off of 5 and show off more games that while they didn't make it to the top 5, I think are still exceptional games worth checking out if you were to download Sandbox right now. Starting off with Sam Bash. This is a fun little game that was made in the same style of Crash Bash, the PS1 game. A nice little throwback to see become a game on Sandbox and pretty fun to play either by yourself with bots or with friends. Very simple and quick fun, but also pretty difficult as those bots to play against give you a nice little challenge. Terry Papers. Oh man, this game is very addicting to play. Just like the game Papers, Please, Terry's Papers is the same premise where you have to get a job sorting through people's information at the border, making sure everything is right. It's interesting that there's a bit of a light story here and tutorial that starts as soon as you enter it, going through people's information as a meticulous task, but it's worth it as you try to figure out who these people are and if they say who they actually are. Not gonna lie, this game got a good couple of minutes out of me before I wanted to keep playing more of it since I knew I had to cover some other games. But this game is definitely worth checking out if you get the chance to. Arcane Wrath is another interesting Sandbox game. This game is actually cross-platform, believe it or not. And I don't mean PC and console. I mean it's also compatible with VR, but you can play it with a keyboard and mouse. This is a very interesting game as you play as a mage which has to travel through a castle to gather souls. These souls can then be brought to this vendor, which is this creepy looking dude, which is the only friendly guy you also know too. In short, you explore this castle to fight off enemies, upgrade your abilities by giving soul stones to the dude that consumes it, and this game is pretty cool as it has a level of eeriness that you'd expect from a horror game, but something always feels off. In a good way. Hack Up and Go is another simple yet fun game where you have to, well, pack up and go. You're on the clock as all you have is 3 minutes to get everything you need and meet up with your parents at the airport. Of course, the game tells you exactly everything you need to get around the house, from the briefcase to the clothes to even the key that you'll need to unlock the door and leave the house. But for me, it was fairly simple and fun to play. Hopefully we'll get more levels for this game as it'd be fun to see some more difficult levels to try to complete under a certain time and for different reasons too. Freezy Cab is a fun and interesting game where you drive a taxi cab that you can explore maps like this tower map, and of course the controls and driving did take me a little bit of getting used to, but more importantly, the gameplay was very fun. Also, it's incredibly awesome to see that there's a level editor within this game. This also shows the possibilities of being able to create your own content within this game. Pretty meta if you ask me, but nonetheless very cool to see. Health Inspector, created by Gavardos, is a game where you run a diner, and with this diner you cook and make meals for your customers. Of course, every once in a while you'll have a health inspector come through and check your diner to make sure everything is up to par. If not, then it'll cost you money. What's even more amazing is being able to accidentally poison your customers, grab their bodies, and throw them into the meat grinder as this game uses the Terry models, making it an even funnier joke. The game is pretty fun, and while it might be anxiety-inducing to keep up with your customers sometimes, the kitchen might have to get a little messy before serving up that next meal. So this next game, The Comfy Place Act 1, is a puppet mascot horror game that is in a very alpha state. But with what's presented, it's actually pretty good. I wasn't able to get through the entire game since I was on a time limit when I was doing my stream, but from what I played, this game was actually pretty scary. 10 out of 10, can't wait to see where this one is going to turn out in the future, and definitely will make a separate video on this too. The Janitor is a fun little game that makes it feel like you're in another weird experiment that feels like Stanley's Parable, but with some slight dark humor and some things that are still yet to be fleshed out with the game. With the introduction leading into the first part of the game, I was really enjoying how lighthearted and funny the game started out, leading me more into a puzzle-like level where I have to clean up some yellow goo with a gun I got. Again, it was mentioned that the game will be more fleshed out, including the gun model getting replaced with something that feels like it should be in the game. Either way, if you like puzzles and some humor, definitely check this game out. This next one I've covered before, but I have to cover it again since, of course, it made a return back into Sandbox, and it's Wise Guys. This is a mobster tower defense game that puts you in the shoes of a local mafia mobster, protecting spots where a rat sold out the mafia for protection. It's fairly simple, but still a ton of fun to play. And last, we have Legend of the Fisherman. This is a cute little game where you play as a fisherman in a boat at open sea, where tons of sharks are trying to kill you so you can boost your boat around the water, jump through the air, and slice and dice through deadly sharks wanting to eat you when they get the chance. This is a cool concept for a game, and while it may be a fairly simple game, it's worth checking out if you want some quick fun. Here's some quick mentions to add since these games were multiplayer and I wasn't able to get anybody to play at the moment. Yes, I know I can ask, but at the same time, I gotta get this video out, so let's get into it. Pieces from the Murder Wagon is definitely a game I wanted to mention, as it's a multiplayer game, but unfortunately, again, I wasn't able to get another player at the time. So this is more of a Phasmophobia game with a watcher and a runner. Not much else can be said, but if you have played Phasmophobia before, you'll probably get the same vibe from this game too. Party Goobers is a fun Wii-inspired game that you can experience on S&box. This game has you trying to find certain goobers to stay within the game. The more that you get wrong guesses in these games, most likely you'll end up dying and have to click on targets from the afterlife. It's a nice, simple little game, but it's something that will definitely keep you engaged, and it's multiplayer too. And last but not least is Scrapyard Brawl. This is an amazing arena-style shooter, or boomer shooter as other folks would say, that replicates games like Serious Sam, Painkiller, and the beloved Quake games. With some roguelike elements, this is definitely worth your time if you want a good challenge and some quick-paced shooting action. With all these games presented, it's really cool to see that more content is getting posted on S&box, and again, you can play all of these games right now for free with the video that's provided right here in the corner. Actually, this corner. Aside from that, we got some massive news about the new player model rig getting added into S&box, and also updates about the official S&box game mode that's returning in S&box. Check it out right here, and thanks for watching.